Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and CEO of Let's Talk Supply Chain, as well as the Blended podcast and founder of the Blended Pledge as well. We've got a super exciting show for you today. We are introducing you to our new face, our new voice of Let's Talk Supply Chain in the Asia Pac region. Now we're going to be talking all about what's happening over there. We're going to be talking about the top supply chain news stories of the week as well. Now remember, if you're tuning in, I want to know where you're tuning in from. So make sure to put that in the comments. And if you're loving the conversation today, of course, we love a good fire emoji here at Let's Talk Supply Chain. All right, but first we need to give a shout out to our show sponsor, which is Secret Society of Supply Chain. If you have not checked out our free membership group, head over to secretsocietyofsupplychain.com and join us over there. We are overwhelmed with the number of people who have been joining us week after week. And I want to give a shout out to everybody. So bear with me because this is a long list. We've got Tariq, Derek, James, Abigail, Lucy, Sileshi, Rich, Harsh, Jose, Marcia, Mike, Adam, Fleming, Trevor, Divya, Greg, Hans, Ali, Crystal, Laura, and Karina. Thank you so much for everybody who joined us at the Secret Society of Supply Chain. And if you haven't joined us, I hope that you're going to join us soon because there are a lot of great conversations that are happening. All right, so let's get to what is happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain. Now we've got a brand new episode wherever you watch and listen to the show. This is episode 545, and this is in collaboration with Pallet Alliance. Now, Mary has been on the show before, and she's really demonstrated who they are over at Pallet Alliance and how they use pallet scientists to really get it right for you. Now, we recorded this one at Modex, and Patrick joined Mary for this one as well. And we take a look at your supply chain from every angle. I mean, if you think about it, everything moves on a pallet. If you are moving it on a pallet that is the wrong size, you are actually losing money, losing time, and losing resources. So go and check this out, episode 545, wherever you listen to the show. And if you look here, if you go to letstalksupplychain.com, we have our AI interactive podcast experience for our episodes. You can click the buttons below that and you see executive summary. You can even ask the episode a question. So head over to letstalksupplychain.com to check that out. All right, what have we got next? I am going live. We are going live Wednesday, June 10th with Irina Roska. Now, she is the VP of Supply Chain and Operations over at Verisite, and Michael Falls, the Chief Customer Officer over at Reveal. And Irina is really going to be talking about how they've used the Reveal system to help them with carrier visibility, operational optimization, GL coding, cost allocations, and so much more. You're not going to want to miss this. Go to the link in the comments, click the attend button, and we will let you know when we go live. Even if you can't join us live, we will send you the link after the recording. Where else are we going to be? Well, I'm going to be hosting a webinar with BlackBerry Radar, and that is happening June 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be talking about seeing the full picture. Now, I just had Elise on the podcast, and that episode is going to be coming out in a few weeks as well, talking about how they're managing their equipment with dynamic pairing. And this is all about digital asset tracking. So click the link in the comments and join us. You're going to want to click the attend, probably not the attend button. You're going to want to register for this one. So go ahead and check that out. Then we've got, actually, we're not going to be in person for a little bit. So that is... So that's why we don't have any in person. Now, the other thing I wanted to let you know is, of course, we've got the Let's Talk Supply Chain Asia LinkedIn page. Now, we've been getting a lot of great traction over on this page. We're going to be sharing with you stories within the Asia Pac Middle East region, what's going on in supply chain, how that's going to affect you globally, globally and around the world in your supply chains. So highly recommend that you go and click the follow button. The link is in the comments for you, and hopefully we'll see you over there. All right, now it's time to send it over to Camille to introduce our guest for today.
A lot of supply chain problems start as communication problems. A customer needs certainty. A team needs direction. A partner needs trust. Fauzan has spent more than 10 years managing logistics operations across that entire chain. His work has focused on practical outcomes, stronger collaboration, more reliable service. He believes logistics only works when teams, partners, and vendors trust the process and each other. That belief now shapes how he talks about supply chain, especially across Asia. He brings a DBA in logistics and supply chain and a PQE from the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers. And today, he's here to tell us about the brand new Let's Talk Supply Chain Asia live show. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Fauzan to the stage.
Hello and welcome. I am so excited. I've been waiting for this day for a very, very long time because we have been talking, I think, since late last year, and it's taken us a few months to get to this point. But Let's Talk Supply Chain Asia is going to launch in June 2026, and we're super excited. So welcome to the show, Fauzan.
Hi, Sarah. How are you? Thank you for having me on the show, and lovely to see you as always.
Yeah, super exciting. And so people got to know you a little bit through that introduction. What is it that people don't know about you from that introduction that you can share, that you're excited about being the new face, the new voice of the Asia Pac region?
For people who are seeing me for the first time, not seen my LinkedIn, I'll give a small introduction about myself.
Sure.
I started in the logistics space about 10 years back in my father's owned logistic company. Started from all the basics, and I've seen the phases of how logistic happens. And what I understand predominantly is that this Asian space is something that everyone who's in supply chain should keep their eyes on. And I think it's a great move that we are covering Asia market with the Let's Talk Supply Chain brand. And I'm eager to share all the ups and downs and whatever insights is happening in the market. And very soon we'll also have a few market leaders, trendsetters on the podcast for you guys to share their insights.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We got some heavy hitters coming on the show. We've got Iman that you may have seen over on our LinkedIn pages. She's very active. She's a big fan of the show, and so we're super excited to have her on. And then, of course, Dr. Mudasir is going to be on the show as well, and I think he's going to be talking about a new product that he's got out. So stay tuned for those because there's going to be an episode about once a month starting in June, and then we're going to be picking up the pace as we move forward. So that's what you can look forward to over the summer. All right, let's get to our poll of the week. And remember, if you're tuning in, I want to know where you're tuning in from. So make sure to put those in the comments. We want to give you a shout out over on the screen right here. I want to give a shout out to Craig over on my personal LinkedIn. He's very happy that Mary has an episode on our show. All right. Let's get to the poll. So we ask you all a question every single Wednesday morning across the Let's Talk Supply Chain LinkedIn. Now, the question that we have for you, what's the most chaotic phrase in supply chain? Now, we had 224 votes on this one. I mean, you guys loved this question. 49% of you said client needs it today. 22% of you said the forecast changed. 17% of you said it's stuck at customs. And 12% of you said carrier just canceled. Fauzan, if you look at this question and you think about what's happening in the Asia region, do these resonate with you? What did you think about these?
Sarah, I'm telling you, this is a great question, but I'd like to add another phase to it.
Sure.
I think when people say it, the situation is under control. I think that's the most chaotic one.
The situation is under control. Do people actually use that phrase? Because I don't think I've ever used that in supply chain. I may have wanted to use it, but then I was like, I don't know if people will actually believe me.
I think when you hear this term, you should know that you should start running in the opposite direction.
That is awesome. One of the ones that stood out for me was client needs it today. And it's really funny, because there are so many different elements that we have to handle in supply chain. And sometimes it's just not something that we can do. But also, sometimes we think the client needs it today, but realistically, tomorrow is still okay as well. So I thought that one was really funny. Well, I want to thank everybody for weighing in on the question of the week. This one was a fun one and can't wait to see what the answers are next week. All right, now's the time of the show where we do a bit of a market update. So Fauzan, I want to talk to you about what is happening in the Asia Pac region. What do we need to know? What's going on? I've been talking to a few people in that region because as we ramp up what we're doing, I've been having a lot of phone calls and really trying to understand what's going on. One of the things that really surprised me from the conversations was that there is a shortage of supply chain talent in the Asia Pac region. So talk to me about what you're seeing, what you're hearing. You're in logistics. You've traveled to China and Egypt recently. And so what are the conversations that you're having right now?
I think for the past 2 months, all I've heard is about the disruption in the region.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly what a lot of companies are facing right now. I think it all boils down to resilient supply chains, proper planning, proper inventory management. And companies that have usually focused on that is someone who had a few hiccups at the beginning of the whole scenario, but now they got things under control. But companies that were a little off their supply chain game are having a lot of problem coming right now, and it's all it has done is snowballed into a bigger problem for them.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm, there's a lot of different moving parts in supply chain. And one of the reasons, because I keep getting this question, why are you expanding into Asia? Why are you expanding into Europe? And supply chains are global, but they're also very regional. And it's really important for us to understand what is happening in the different regions for us to be able to source, buy, and move goods from the different regions to be able to bring products into the various countries that we manage supply chains for. And so to me, it was really interesting that you said that, but also that there's a supply chain talent shortage. So if anybody's looking to come into the industry or they're graduating, that's something to think about, right? The Asia Pac region is somewhere that we need some really, really good supply chain talent. So it might be somewhere that you may want to look. I think some of the other things that I've heard of through some of my conversations as well is a lot of people within Europe and North America and South America, they are looking for information about what's happening in that region. A lot of products are being sourced over there. A lot of products are being moved into Europe and North America. And we're going to talk about that in our next couple of articles. And so it's really important for us to understand. And a lot of the supply chain folks in your region are having trouble, right? Because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of disruption. There's a lot of conflict, both personally and professionally. And they're having to manage supply chains through that. But then they're also having to manage the information that's going to their partners globally to let them know what's happening in the region and how it might affect them as well. So there's a lot of pressure being put on supply chain professionals in the Asia Pac region. Would you say that?
Absolutely. There are a lot of people are deciding, especially because of the crisis that's happening in the region. You have insurance premiums that have shot up. You have vessel routings that have been, challenged. You have a lot of longer transits that have started. So it has a lot to do with overall planning as such, which has been affected for a lot of companies. And I think this is a time where your procurement planning, your partners that you work with, and the technology you use is very important. This is where it boils down to.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to our first article. I do want to give a shout out to Fauzan over on my personal LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so our first article, now this is all about how geopolitical tensions in 2026 are reshaping global supply chain strategies. Now, something really interesting to know, and it actually breaks it down in this article. They're talking about how topping the list for supply chain priorities, political stability, trade access, and long-term security. So it's not just about transit times. It's not just about price and costs. Those three are inching up there as far as what organizations, supply chain leaders are looking at as far as their supply chains. Now, a couple of things that they mentioned in this article, regionalization. I mean, we've been talking about this since the pandemic. So supply chain teams are really, really looking at regionalization right now. That's why it's so important that we've got the conversations happening globally, but also regionally. Supplier diversification. A lot of supply chain teams are taking a look at what suppliers that they're buying from, and they're actually diversifying that and looking for different suppliers in different regions. Strategic stock of key materials. So a lot of times we've been looking at just-in-time inventory. Now we're looking at strategic stock of key materials that supply chain teams are keeping on hand just in case a disruption comes up and happens. Digital tools. One of the things on the list was sustainability. I put a question mark around that because I think it's important. Obviously, I've got a LinkedIn learning course about sustainable supply chains, but it's also not top of mind in a lot of the conversations that I'm hearing around supply chains right now. Resilience as a long-term strategic advantage, that is the key to success for a lot of supply chain teams as well. Fauzan, when you read this article, what did you think?
I think this is a fairly this article covers fairly everything that is happening in the region right now. This questions resilience. This talks about political stability. This talks about route diversification, all in all, and also inventory security. A lot of people, a lot of companies don't pay attention in what partners they work with. They usually go for the cheapest price, and especially in the Asian market, everything's price sensitive. But it's during time of crisis you try to understand that the cheapest option is not always the cheapest option. It could be in the long term be the most expensive one, and also disrupting your business is the problem. As in, if you've got suppliers, if you've got one supplier, one region that you're sourcing from, maybe you should look around, have a backup supplier, have backup inventory, talk about how inventory has to be managed, how supply chain has to be managed. And I think this article fairly covers it and also makes companies and readers question about their own supply chain.
Awesome. Awesome. I want to give a shout out to a couple of people over on my personal Instagram. We've got Freight Log Chain, Jewelry, and we've got Shimon as well. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today. Now it's time to get to our news desk. I want to throw it over to Julian and Diane to give us the top 3 news stories for the week.
Sarah, the desk has 3 pressure points this week.
Shipping rules, protein supply, and the race to the doorstep. Iran has created a formal transit authority for ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz.
To apply, vessels submit ownership, insurance, crew, cargo, and routing details before a permit is approved.
Authority is the administrative interface with the IRGC Navy, which controls physical transit.
There is no published tariff. Reports say some ships have paid up to $2 million per transit.
That turns routing into a compliance problem, an insurance problem, and a schedule risk at the same time.
Right. Next up, protein demand is hitting the ingredient supply chain. Whey protein concentrate is the pressure point.
The USDA says some suppliers are sold out for the rest of the year.
The demand signal is clear. 70% of Americans want more protein, up from 59% 4 years ago.
Standard whey powder prices are up more than 50% since January. That hits margins fast.
For CPG teams, the decision tree is pricing, allocation, reformulation, or a tougher retail conversation.
Finally, Amazon now is pushing 30-minute delivery into more U.S. markets.
It is widely available in Atlanta, Dallas, Fort Worth, Philadelphia, and Seattle. The offer is thousands of groceries, household essentials, and local items in about 30 minutes or less.
For fulfillment teams, this is about proximity. Inventory has to sit closer to demand. These stories change routing plans, buying decisions, pricing calls, and delivery promises.
Sarah, back to you.
Love learning more about what's happening in supply chain for this week. Now, some of those top news stories, I mean, we were just talking about the political instability, and they're talking about charging ships up to $2 million to go through the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, we're already seeing increases across the board, from food to products to different things like that. That's only going to increase everything even more, although it'll bring the transit times down. And we're going to go into an article that talks about what actually moves through the Strait of Hormuz and what it's going to affect. The whey protein is interesting, right? Because especially here in North America, protein is a really big deal here, and everybody wants protein in everything that they're doing. The fact that they might not have any through the rest of 2026 is a strong demand signal. Now, that 30-minute Amazon delivery is really interesting. I was on stage last week at Home Delivery World with MJ from Mattress Firm, and she was talking about how they changed their delivery model to deliver their mattresses to door and just leave it, which is like the Amazon model. And it's interesting because her NPS score stayed at like 91 or 92% over actually delivering it to door and inside the house, which is super interesting. But now that Amazon is coming out with the 30-minute delivery window in each one of those locations, I wonder how it's going to change the mindset of the delivery for companies like Mattress Firm. Fauzan, what did you think about the top news stories?
Sarah, I'll tell you, hearing about whey protein shortages, I think that's a bummer, especially for the bodybuilding world. But jokes aside, I'm telling you, supplementation and nutrition has become more of a lifestyle product in today's market. And I think because of social media and the whole idea of healthy eating and healthy consumption, I think whey protein has been in the demand for the last 5 years. It's also another reason why this sudden huge surge in demand is not only from hardcore gym goers, but also from local people that want to add more protein in their diet. And I think the demand is another reason for that. I think overall, coming to Amazon and its 30-minute delivery, I think that is in the right direction. But at the end of the day, it gives you an idea how efficient supply chain is getting. You're talking about real-time tracking, instant fulfillment, same-day delivery, but it also creates a lot of pressure on the infrastructure that is in place. So I think that would be something we should look into when we have this. It is a big challenge on the current infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because it just showcases which industries get affected by supply chains that don't really think about supply chains on a regular basis. You just mentioned bodybuilders and folks that go to the gym, they're not thinking about supply chains, but when they can't get their protein, then, it's a supply chain problem. All right, let's get to our second article because we've only got a few minutes left, and I do want to cover two more articles. Now, this one goes into what is happening specifically within the Middle East market. Now, this is interesting because what they said is 25 to 30% of all global oil moves through the Strait of Hormuz. So going back to what the news desk said around charging ships to go through, at least the product can go through, but it's going to cost upwards of $2 million. 20% of liquefied natural gas goes through the Strait of Hormuz as well. And so what is this going to affect? This is going to affect higher food costs, fertilizer costs. The fertilizer is what makes a lot of the food that we eat, helps to make the food that we eat. And so fertilizer going up is going to affect the cost of food as well. Fauzan, what did you think about this article?
I'm telling you, Sarah, with this whole crisis that's going on, you will have a lot of food security issues all around the world. Fertilizer goes up, food prices go up globally. Your energy prices are directly linked with fertilizer production. And I think this disruption in the market right now is going to hit hard, you especially emerging economies right now.
Yeah. Yeah, what we haven't seen or talked about recently with a lot of the disruptions is air freight. And this particular article talks about air traffic disruptions that are happening over in the region that are then affecting, obviously, the products that are moving by air freight. The other thing that I thought was interesting is the fertilizer going up, or the fertilizer not being able to transit to where it needs to go, is happening just as the planting season begins in the northern hemisphere. And so if that part of it is disrupted, we're also going to see some food challenges moving forward as well. The other thing I thought was interesting was that helium also goes through this region, and that is needed for semiconductors and medical imaging as well. And so these are a few things that we don't think are affected by supply chain. And this particular article really breaks it down into what these disruptions could mean and what they can affect as well, which I thought was really interesting. I mean, I never really thought about planting season in the northern hemisphere and what that means for us here. I didn't know helium was part of semiconductors or medical imaging. So I highly recommend you go and check out this article over in the comments and take a look at what this disruption means to you. Now, Fazal over on my personal LinkedIn says the resilience versus recovery distinction is spot on. Too many teams confuse having a backup plan with being built to absorb shocks in real time. And the fertilizer angle is critically underreported. Upstream disruptions during planting season don't wait for boardroom decisions. So that, that's coming from somebody who knows what they're talking about around planting season. And again, it's very underreported, this whole fertilizer. So go and check that out. Stay informed on it and understand what it means for you. All right, let's get to our last article. Now, this article is about an AI grocery startup called Vori. And the reason why I chose this article is because it talks about the supermarket supply chain. So you've got a supply chain that's outside of the supermarket, but then you really realistically have supply chain within the supermarket, especially now that they are curating orders while you're shopping, right? You've got that person going around and they're picking orders for somebody else. And what they're saying is that Walmart and Amazon are investing so much in this particular part of the industry that they don't want the small to medium-sized supermarkets to lose out because of that. And so they've created this self-driving operating system for supermarkets. It's fascinating. What did you think about this, Fauzan?
Sarah, I'm telling you, AI is going to make huge difference in the supply chain. And while going through this article, I'm going to tell you one thing. AI is going to improve forecasting errors for the whole planning of groceries. Mind it, you also have perishable items in the grocery store. So I think managing waste management is also something that AI is going to definitely help them. And I think given the current market, what is happening around the world, grocery shopping usually gets affected because of demand volatility. I think that is something that they'll be able to predict better, understand consumer behavior at a broader level, and will help them keep stock and inventory on time for consumers to go. I don't know how it is going to affect in terms of pricing, but I think it's going to make it more efficient than the current system.
Yeah, and they're getting a ton of investment. If you go and read that article, the link is in the comments. They are getting a ton of investment for this. What I didn't realize is that there are 50 to 100,000 different products in a supermarket at any given time. I mean, that is a lot of inventory to manage. Nobody wants to be doing that through spreadsheets. I think the other thing that they said was they want to protect the biodiversity of our food ecosystem, which I think was also a really sort of like eye-opening for me, right? How does a self-driving operating system in supermarkets, supply chains have any effect on biodiversity of our food ecosystem? But this article really talks about how it's really important for us to have diversity of choice when it comes to supermarkets, when it comes to the food that we're consuming and the packaged products that are on the shelves. Anyways, we are at time. We've run a tiny bit over, but I hope that you all have enjoyed this show. I'm going to be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, right on these channels. So make sure that you tune in then. Also, the QR code in the right-hand corner, that's going to take you to the Let's Talk Supply Chain Asia LinkedIn page. Head over there, click the follow button, because you're going to want to know what Fauzan is up to, him and his team, all the people that they're going to be talking about. Plus, we're going to have a social media team on the ground as well. So, Fauzan, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for having me.
All right. We'll see everybody next week. Have an amazing week ahead. Bye-bye.